Well, hey, welcome everybody to another Tech Tip Tuesday. Here we are, May 20th, 2025. By the way, that's an interesting number. 5202025. It's like, repeats itself anyway. One of those cool things to fun to play with. My name's Ken Close. I am a Healy World member. Like most of you guys here, I've been with Healy for a while. I am an engineer, pioneer member, and lover of the technology. So I'm honored to be here with you guys. I'm also joined by our co-host guest, Jake Barron, Head of Operations for Americas. Jake, how you doing?
Doing great. Good evening, everyone.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And we've got a live tech support person, Emmanuel is here with us, right?
Yeah, Manuel's here to help. Gonna answer any question. There's not a question that he cannot answer as long as it's in the chat.
Well, there we go. So we've got a live tech support folks or person in the background there in the chat. So, obviously you guys are going to be putting your questions in the chat and Emmanuel will be helping us out there as well. So let me tell you how Tech Tip Tuesday works. It is a chat-based forum where you guys put your questions, all kinds of questions in the chat, and myself and Jake will bring these live on the call. And then, of course, Emmanuel, tech support will be in the back with lightning fingers giving all kinds of great information as well. So what we can do here is we talk about anything around the tech, the apps, the function, the theories, the science. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Topics from all over the place have been on this episode or on this show. But we can't talk about those. We can't talk about anything about diagnosis or preventative medicine or treatments, diseases, disorders, that kind of thing. We do have resources to point you to for that. But other than that, Jake and I aren't doctors, but we sure do like talking about techie stuff. So, so you guys can fire away with those techie questions, and we'll do our best to sort them out. So far, I don't think we've had one that stumped us, but hey, I'm open. Anybody got something out there? You're muted there, Jake.
Ah, there we go.
There he is.
Still trying to figure out how to use the Zoom after, a couple hundred Tech Tip Tuesdays.
Yeah, and how many years now we've been zooming around?
Well, yeah, you more than me, but yeah, for me, I think closing in on 4 years of Tech Tip Tuesdays. So,
Wow, I love it. What a
yeah.
fun time it's been. So let's see, what do we have here? So Lindley's saying welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, by the way. So here's one about any news about adding more McMakin programs to the MagHealy. Hmm, I don't know. Jake,
Um,
any
yeah.
news?
There's let me see, there's developments related to that, but nothing that can be released at this time. I would say there'll be something to be announced here in the next couple of months, most likely. But yeah, of course, the making programs are the most popular. Well, some of the most popular programs. I mean, of course, depending on how you're using them. If you're using them for yourself, the most popular. If you're using something more for the environment around you, of course, the atmosphere programs are great. But yeah, like making programs are amazing, in high demand, and that's certainly one of the areas that we want to focus on going forward, is expanding that um, sort of database of programs available. But yeah, there's nothing that I can share at this time. But yeah, we realize that it's something that everyone wants, so it'll definitely be a focus going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing, folks, maybe you guys um have heard stories about the expandability of Healy, but I don't think you really know that what it can actually expand into. There's so much still available to the Healy technology, and or I should say to this quantum technology that I don't think they'll ever run out of things to add. I mean,
No, I mean we talked about it quite a bit on this call, and the position that Healy is in, the fact that Healy is essentially, the TimeWaver is kind of the parent company, and the TimeWaver has thousands upon thousands of programs for everything you can possibly imagine as well. And there's not another company out there that has that benefit. This isn't something where you can just come out with a frequency program and, oh, this is the same thing as Healy. It's not. Like, there's a lot more that goes into it as well. It's very hard. It's very exciting, the things that are coming. Like, we've had some really cool global internal team meetings recently. And if you could see sort of the product roadmap of what's to come here over the next few years, this is the place to be. And the technology that we have and what we're going to be releasing, we're always going to stay out front of everybody as well. And this, it's really kind of impressive, and it's, makes you kind of proud to be associated with Healy. Not just the products that are coming out, but also the science behind it and the studies that are currently underway as well. Like, we're talking double-blind, placebo-controlled studies, the gold standard as well, that prove the benefits of Healy. So yeah, of course, I'd love to be able to share more details, but I can't. But this is the place to be, and everyone's going to be super happy with what's going to be coming here over the next few months and years.
I mean, think about the different markets that Healy is associated with, from everything from like the fitness market to the self-help and coaching market, to to mental wellness. I mean,
Yeah.
the learning capabilities, just so many different markets that are super popular right now. It's endless. It's endless. Okay, so here's a question here. It says, please explain about acceptable um, chargers for the Healy and the MagHealy. Can you use fast chargers also after initial fully charging and using up the battery? Do we need to fully use up the battery every time before you charge it again? So yeah, we've talked about various chargers, and then of course this is what you're actually plugging the devices into, or in the terms of the MagHealy, what you're setting the MagHealy on. Um, we've talked about that before as well. And so the quick chargers, the thing about quick chargers is that there are certain batteries that are compatible with the quick chargers and some that are not. Healy has a battery that's designed to charge to a certain point and then slowly up to the rest. So a smart charger, I guess you might say, kind of does that, but most of these quick chargers aren't really designed like that. They put a lot of power into the battery in a short period of time. Healy does have the max input for the Healy, as far as the battery charging, is 2,500 milliamps. So actually, there's some data about that in your owner's manual that comes with it. Some of these quick chargers are like 3,000 and 4,000 milliamps. It's way too much.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point, because you see these things advertised, and okay, I was going to charge my iPhone X times faster or whatever, and that kind of thing. And that really, if the battery, like you mentioned, the battery is not designed to take advantage of that technology, you're not going to get the benefits of the quick charge or the fast charge too. Really, and maybe Manuel can put into the chat here the minimum charging or recommended charging block specs for the MagHealy. We find that for the MagHealy, it's a bigger thing to be aware of, because if it's too low, if you're using like a 1 amp charger or something like that, you could work, but in a lot of cases, you're not going to get the great performance there as well. We do have one. Of course, we have the wireless charging pad, but if as far as what you plug it into the wall, a lot of us have charging blocks at home that are sufficient. But if you don't, there is one that we do recommend that's actually sold on Amazon. It's from a brand called Anchor, one of the more reputable brands out there. But it's always good to get one that has one port a single port charger, because a lot of these hubs they sell out there, they might have like 5 or 6, a couple of USB-Cs, a couple of USB, and if you have other things plugged into it, you're not, it's splitting the power between all of the ports. Some of them have dedicated power per port, the more expensive ones, but some of the more common ones, the less expensive ones, you're sharing that power. So if you have other things plugged in at the same time and you're trying to charge your MagHealy, it might say up to 3 amps, but if you're doing other things, you're only getting like 1 amp power there.
Yeah, that's a good point, folks. If you've got a multi-port charger and they say that it's, I don't know, it's 4,000 milliamps. Now, we're talking about milliamps and we're talking about amps. Jake mentioned the word, 2 amps or 1 amp. Okay, so 1 amp is the same as saying 1,000 milliamps. Milliamps is the a smaller measurement. Basically, it's the 1,000 milliamps equals 1 amp. Okay, just put it that way. So, um, if you're, and then the question here again is expanded and it says, I have been charging the device through my laptop. Um, check the output specs on your laptop. All of the USB chargers, all of the USB ports themselves, if it's a USB port, it's going to put out the same voltage, but it's not going to put out the same amps. And it's the amps that actually dictate the speed of the charge and the completeness of the charge, you might say. So something that might be only a 1/2 of an amp or 500 milliamps, that's fairly small, relatively speaking to what the Healy or the MagHealy wants. So the charging block or the box that plugs into the outlet is good. That box itself is going to have a certain output um, rating, and you want something that's at least 2,000 milliamps or 2 amps as an output. The MagHealy wants more than that. Laptops, you're going to have to check the specs on your laptop to see what the output is on that. I don't know. It will vary based on the device.
Mhm.
So let's see. Emmanuel's put some content in there about essentially the USB devices. These are at least 5 volts, which is like I
Yeah.
mentioned. Um, the voltage is going to be the same, so that means it's compatible, but its amount of amperage it's putting out will determine how long it takes to charge and if it even comes to a complete charge.
Yeah, those are sort of the recommended minimums. If you're finding you're having charging performance issues, like I mentioned, there are some other um, charging blocks out there. Sometimes for the MagHealy, going up to a 3 amp charger solves some of the issues as well.
Yeah, and remember, 3 amps equals 3,000 milliamps. Okay, sometimes they say it's different ways in which they're shown on the spec tag. Okay, so 5 volts at 3 amps. Okay, is it okay? So that's that's pretty okay for the MagHealy. It keeping a feel on your on your Healy, because if you've got 3 amps going into the Healy and it's warming it up or you're smelling plastic, that's too much.
Mhm.
That's too much. It really should only have about 2 amps or 2,000. 2,500, I mean, I've charged mine with that many, many times and it works really well. But
Yeah.
2 amps is, again, I think that's the rating. Okay.
And I'll put the link into the chat here for that one charger I mentioned on Amazon that we tested it thoroughly in the office with MagHealy, and it has really good performance.
All right. And Jake was mentioning some of these devices that you can plug multiple USB cables or C cables in, USB-Cs. And it's true that they are, the more things you plug in, the more it disperses the capabilities of that whole device in terms of charging. So some of those devices are made very well. They have essentially a logic circuit that keeps each port at the same output. Now the voltage will probably be the same. So it's about 5 volts DC, but the amperage can vary. And the more things you plug into it, the lower the amperage goes on some of the less expensive multi-port devices. They're not great. I mean, you get 5 things plugged in and it says 2 amps per port, and it
Mhm.
might be 500 milliamps or half an amp, right? It really does draw it down because of the way the circuits are created internally. So take a close look at those. There's a bit of confusion for consumers. I know um, these chargers, they put out this rating that says max output. Max output means that under all good conditions, that's the most it's ever going to put out. So as it gets older, maybe as it's plugged into a battery that, or the connections aren't great, whatever, then it's going to be less. Or if there's multiple ports, it's going to be distributed lower over the different ports than that max. So yeah, be careful on purchase of those things. I personally, I have just single port chargers. Yeah, I might have 4 of them plugged in to a power strip, but again, the power strip itself, um, I could have a power strip completely filled with charging blocks and USB cords going to various devices, and I'll never overload the power strip. The power strip is a 15 or 20 amp device, and we're pulling very, very small amounts of current for each one of our smart devices or rechargeable devices that we're plugged into. So you don't have to worry about overheating any kind of the power strips with multiple things plugged into it. Okay, so and Jake has put that link in there to that charging block. Um, yeah, I know it can get a little confusing, guys, for how to charge it. Paying attention to the performance of your device, you'll notice some things like if you have a charging block that is low in its power output and you plug your Healy into it, for say, and usually it charges in a couple hours, but all of a sudden the next morning it's the green light's still on, it's still not complete. That makes a big difference. That's telling you something about that charging block. I've had a lot of folks have troubles, or they assume they have troubles with the Healy because not charging fully or it's taking forever, and it's not the Healy. It is the supply that they're charging with, either the block or even the cord is old and damaged, bad connections, several things like that.
Mhm.
So it's true of the MagHealy as well. Remember the magnetic base that you're putting the MagHealy on, that is taking basically current flow, converting it into a magnetic field, and then inside the MagHealy, that magnetic field is then reintroducing current flow to charge the battery. So there is a invisible field, a magnetic field between the plate and the MagHealy, no different than say between your phone and a wireless charger. That magnetic field has a degree of loss. What I mean by that in electronics words, it's a degree of loss of energy. So it takes a little bit more energy to create that magnetic field to transfer into the receiver part of the MagHealy and then convert that into current. So that's why the MagHealy likes that charging base needs a little bit higher amplitude of charging block, just to making sure that you've got good power there. Okay. And this is another thing that's really super cool, folks. I mean, think about that for a second. You've got a charging plate and you've got a battery. These are two physical items. You put them together, um, there's no wiring connection, and yet one is charging the other. That's done through inductive energy. That's done through the magnetic field. So, which is the same thing that the MagHealy is putting out, a magnetic field. When it's transmitting frequencies to you, your body is the inductive servant, or I should say the receiver of that magnetic field, charging what? Your cells, right? It's actually creating coherent signals to raise the energy within the cells of your body and optimizing those systems. Isn't that great? I mean, it's a perfect example of how things work in the invisible field. Okay. Let's see. So follow-up question, how long should the fully charged MagHealy last if you were to use it constantly? That's a good question. There are some levels of output. You could get 6 or 8 hours. I mean, there's levels of output. The higher your output, the shorter the life of the battery. So it does vary. As well as like, the MagHealy's got many lights on it, right? So the more things you're running, aka LEDs, and then the higher the amplitude of the output, those all make a big difference.
Yeah, and there's the firmware and everything related to the MagHealy has been updated several times since it was released a couple of years ago, and to optimize the battery life as well. And there's different protections that are built into there related to overheating and that kind of thing as well. So, if you're using it in a hot environment, you might get this message that it has to pause basically at that time. Or if it's charging and it's too hot outside, it might have to wait till it cools down to resume charging as well. And then also, if you use it continuously on the charger and don't ever take it off and fully deplete the battery, you're also going to run into the basically kind of the battery saver mode where it only charges up to 60% at that point. So rather than keeping it all the way at 100, it keeps it in a safer range there for the battery life. And then when you take it off the charger and you wanted to fully charge it, you actually have to deplete it below 4% and then fully charge it. At that point, it'll go past 60 all the way to 100% there also. And, it's as far as the battery life too, it's not just the intensity that you're running, the number of programs, the duration, but also, like I mentioned, the temperature around you. The ideal temperature is around 70 degrees for the performance. If you're running the MagHealy, I don't know, outside and it's 100 degrees, you're going to have different performance too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you guys ever heard about keeping batteries in the refrigerator? Right. It was sometimes, keeping them fresh, but that is true. It is true because the thermal dynamics, the thermal load within the environment, does decrease the output or the performance of a battery. I mean, the cooler the environment, the longer it lasts. I've had my MagHealy. Again, it's like it really depends on what I'm running, but
Yeah.
I can get I can get many hours out of it actually.
Hmm.
My Healy, on the other hand, um, I mean, I honestly I run mine at about 100% often because I run it a lot, and so my body's really, acclimated to it. But I can get in, and again, the recommendation is 3 programs a day running the microcurrent, right? Um, as you become a pro, no different than a professional athlete, you get the capabilities of your body increase and improve. And so does the same thing with your body and the Healy. And you can do more, but just pay attention to your body. I know I run some days. I'm running long days, and my Healy I deplete the battery easily in a day because I'm using it a lot.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. That's why it's a good idea to have multiple Healys, by the way, folks. All right. So here's a question here. Can you comment a bit more on the intensity of running programs on MagHealy? And we were just talking about intensity, right? There is a guide for that. I think we've posted it a couple times here. Um,
Yeah, let me pull that up here. Let's see.
okay. So So Ethel's asking, does all of this info apply to our Healys? So when it comes to the charging stuff, I am kind of crossing over between the Healy and the MagHealy in terms of the charging blocks and the power that they need. They are not quite the same. The MagHealy does need more power from the charging block than the Healy. And you can charge the Healy with a 1 amp or 1000 milliamp charging block. I don't recommend a 500 milliamp or half amp. It's so there's a charging block that says 500 milliamps or 1/2 of an amp. That's the same amount of power output. Those charging blocks, I don't recommend those. They will take a very long time to charge your Healy. And if they get to complete charge, um, sometimes that's a pass or fail. 1 amp or 1000 milliamps, that's the same amount of power. 1 amp and 1000 milliamps, that's the same. All right, I'm just saying it in two different ways, but it's the same amount of power. So those charging blocks is a minimum. I wouldn't go anything below that. I prefer a 2 amp or 2000 milliamp, or even I have a 2500 milliamp or 2.5 amp. That one works really well. Now this is all the Healy. The MagHealy likes a bigger one. Um, I like the 3000 milliamp charging block, but 2500 will do it for the MagHealy. Anything lower than that, I mean, perhaps when it's all brand new, but I haven't had great experience with anything smaller than that.
Mhm. Okay, back to the question on the intensity.
Yeah.
So, we always like to point people back to the actual the app guides, whether it's for the Healy 2 app, whether you're running the Healy or the MagHealy app guide as well, because there's a lot of great information available in there. And then this guide is available. You can get to this from back office. You can get to this from Healy Academy in the download section, or you can just view it on your phone or your iPad or your tablet, whatever, within the app itself too. And then, it's very detailed. It goes through the individual applications like Classic, Atmosphere, Water, and McMakin. But for each program, you'll see there's program name, the technology, duration, frequency, and then intensity. And this is important. A lot of the groups, the other groups like Atmosphere and Water, McMakin, the range is pretty similar for the different programs. But when you're talking the first program group or first application, the classic application, you'll see there's a huge range for the recommended intensities. A lot of us just, okay, let's crank it up to 100% and, for max benefits or whatever. But that's not always the case that it has to be that high. You'll see some of these things like, okay, like head harmony here, the recommended intensity is only 5 to 15%. So that's basically when you turn it on, you're already at the recommended intensity there. So and other ones go all the way up to 70 to 100%. So this is always a good place to reference it, especially when we always talk about sort of less is more, not overdoing it and that kind of thing. But you see those intensities there, bigger range. When you're talking about the water, it's 100% always. It doesn't matter which program. It's 10 minutes, 100%. Boom, you're done. And then drink that water, ideally within 12 hours or so. For maximum results. And then you move to atmosphere and you'll see atmosphere 30 to 100%. So it's kind of up to you in that case. Maybe if you're wanting to conserve battery life and the MagHealy's right next to you, maybe you keep it at the lower intensity or the lower part of the range. But if it's maybe a group of whole people and you're sitting around a table and the MagHealy's in the middle, maybe 100% makes more sense in that case there as well. And then when you get to McMakin, you'll see these are all 20 to 100%. And that's, again, that's a big range there. And that's where it comes down to kind of listening to your body and paying attention to how you feel here, to where, okay, maybe 100% is too much for some people, as well. And you want to start 20, 30, 40% and kind of see how it goes. But yeah, again, this is a great resource here. And there's some details about each of the programs too, which is kind of cool here. We for McMakin, that's the one application we have where it's using two frequencies at the same time. It's the only product or any device we have, and the only program group we have where that actually happens there. And you'll see here, it explains it uses specific frequency pairs targeted towards harmonizing the biogenetic field. The first frequency relates to the type of imbalance, and the second frequency defines the target location in the bioenergetic field. So, great program group. Again, one of the more popular ones, of course, but then there's also, we have descriptions for some of the atmosphere program groups, and we talk about water as well, how the water works. So yeah, again, it's easy to kind of overlook these manuals as well, but they're a great resource, over time to look at, or maybe you looked at them a year or two ago and forgot some of the stuff. But it's always a great point to have any questions. It's a good place to start.
If you look at it from a principal perspective, like Jake said, there some of those atmosphere programs are using it for yourself or using it for a group or a larger atmosphere. The larger the space, the larger the area, the more the density or the bodies involved, the higher the amplitude, right? Because you're sharing the signal amongst the group. And so you can go higher in amplitude. And with water can handle it, right? So you can go higher in amplitude. But when you're putting the MagHealy like right on like your chest, or somewhere on a space that they're asking you to keep the power down. And that's just because, your influence might be very great for you, and start small and work your way up. So you don't wind up not really, I like to say overload, but you kind of get maybe a little too much intensity. And how do you know if it's too intense for you? Usually it's because you'll feel some kind of maybe a detox type symptom, an irritant even, by the way. If the Healy or MagHealy is working on a emotional issue. Now, the emotional issue can be the cause of the physical demise, the problem that's happening to you physically. And if this technology, this information, whether it be the microcurrent through the body or the magnetic fields through the MagHealy or the coil, it's still addressing the fundamental cause of the issue. And if it's emotional, guess what? As it's working with that physical influence of the body, it's going to start triggering or tugging on the emotion. And so you may all of a sudden feel sad or angry or something. And you wonder why is that happening? It's because it's trying to also clear the cause of the physical issue. And those are almost always embedded in emotional conditioning. So keeping the power down kind of lowers the amplitude of that emotional experience. Does that make sense? We want to try to heal ourselves comfortably, right? Not by fire, but by compassion. Okay. So here's a question. Do you have to charge the device fully every time you charge it? Also, do you have to deplete it completely? That question was before, we didn't address that completely. I'm sorry about that. Yes, in order to, let's put it this way. If you want to get the maximum life expectancy out of anything, and especially like a battery, you want to treat it like, you want to fully engage it, fully charge it, and then fully deplete it. Those are cycles. As you do pieces of cycles, you're going to start to degrade the full capability of that battery. So now, Some people want to run the sleep program all night and they leave the device, the MagHealy, on the charging base. That's fine, but just not every night. You know, make it an 80-20 rule. 80% of the time you fully charge it and fully deplete it. 20% of the time you don't, right? If you do that 80-20 rule, it'll be fine. Just like your smartphone. How many of you guys completely let this device die? Anybody? I'll bet there's not a lot that do. They'll, at the end of the day, there might be still 40% charge and you plug it in, right? Again, that's the same kind of thing. And the cool thing about some of these smart devices is they actually have a battery performance chart or a graph built into the software. And you can kind of take a look at it and you'll see the battery performance. So I highly recommend that you allow your smartphone or your smart device to die completely and then charge it fully and do that on a regular basis. Again, same 80-20 rule. If you just want the maximum life out of that device, out of that battery, that's a good rule of thumb. It's a principle when it comes to rechargeable devices. Doesn't matter what the device is. Okay. It's not so much about it being a Healy or a MagHealy or an iPhone. It has to do with, again, the type of battery and the fact that it is a rechargeable system, just like your car battery. Now, granted, you don't let a car battery completely go dead ever, right? That doesn't happen. That's a lead acid battery, or some of those are some other specialty type batteries. They're running very high power and they're designed to be able to do that. This is not. These are smaller, lower power batteries designed for this rechargeable capability, but fully charged and fully die. Okay. So here's a question. When sleep or insomnia come up, when I run the Healy analysis, will it make me sleepy? I work night shift, but I really need to be alert at hours of sleep and sleep during the day. Same with exhaustion in job, and I need to stay awake. So great question here, by the way. Let's go to the top of that question, which is about night shifts. We live on a planet, and I know some work in different schedules, and some are night shift workers. We work in we live in a world where we have a circadian rhythm. We as a body in this space and time, we are subjected to this circadian rhythm. And when our planet is in one rhythm and we as a body in action are on another rhythm, it's a very challenging scenario. It is challenging. And there's, I mean, these bodies are designed in a certain way, and we can't change the rising and the setting of the sun. And so how do you kind of deal with that? To be honest, I don't recommend that be a lifetime thing. If you're going to work nights, it should be in cycles, with long periods of not night shift to get your body back in its proper rhythm. But if you are, the insomnia program, if you think about its purpose is to relax the mind so that it can put the body at rest. So no different than, say, the bed rest program. It's designed to promote the parasympathetic, okay, the rest and digest phase of your autonomic nervous system. Doesn't matter when. It's just, that's what it's designed to do. When our body is in the stress response, aka sympathetic, it won't sleep. It won't rest. And if it does sleep, it'll be in small blocks. So night shift is going to stress your body. It just does. And I don't know how else there's no sugarcoating of that. And so the autonomic nervous system could quite possibly be in that sympathetic state. the insomnia program, the exhaustion program is a little bit different. Exhaustion is not about lack of sleep. Exhaustion sometimes is, again, about an overstimulated stress response. So we need to dim down the things that are consuming energy and consuming our ability to promote melatonin, and melatonin is another neurotransmitter tied to the optic nerve. In other words, optic nerve is seeing light. Melatonin is going to be down regulated. Okay. So it's a tough one for night shift workers. I don't know. Yeah, you guys that do this well and stay healthy, I salute you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I don't think we've had that question quite like that on this call, but in that situation, say you were to run the results of analysis. Okay, maybe you're about to go into work, you did an Analyse app, you did a resonance analysis, and sleep comes up, something like that, and it's 8 p.m. and you're about to go into work. Is that something that you would want to hold off on maybe vibrating those results until after your shift is over? Or would it make sense that, okay, in general, it's not like, okay, I'm going to run this program and it's going to put me to sleep at this particular time. It could be pointing to something that's going on long term in this, because of the schedule here too, that there is some issues with getting great sleep, because for the reasons that you mentioned, can the sort of the reverse schedule of what's normal for us.
Remember, a scan is done of your bioenergetic field in the quantum. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
there is a perfect imprint of you in the field. This has been proven by science over and over and over again, that it is the environment that signals the gene. The environment is the outer environment, is what signals this genetic expression. And within that quantum field of intelligence, there is a you that is untainted, that is in perfect form, that is in homeostasis. There's that you, okay? And so when you do an analysis, it's taking that version, the current version, and building a bridge of what's needed to get you back in alignment. And so if you're a night shift worker and insomnia is coming up, it is looking at the quantum field of you, which is in perfection, and the current version of you that is in the three-dimensional world, in that job description and that performance, and finding that there is dissonance, there is struggle, right? And it's trying to say, when it's coming up with, let's say, insomnia or fatigue or exhaustion, that kind of stuff, it's because the body is in that condition, right? And so how do you combat that? It is going to be your diligence to figure out how to essentially fool the optic nerve, right? All of the senses into believing that night is day and day is night, so that your body will think it's serving that circadian rhythm. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a question from Marjorie. Is bed rest the one with helps the vagus nerve, or is it fine flow? Okay, so bed rest is tied to, um, it's not necessarily sympathetic or vagal. It's a vagal tone. Okay, so our vagus nerve is an information highway to the brain as to it's 64% information from the body to the brain, and it flows through our entire body. The autonomic, it's part of the autonomic nervous system. And so when we are in fight or flight, the vagal tone or the information from the body to the brain is in chaos, right? Fight or flight. Let me put it a different way. It's not chaos. It is in fight or flight, meaning that the body is telling the brain that the muscles are ready, the coagulation of the blood is higher, that the systems are acute and ready for performance. And then the brain is doing the analysis based on the sensory input, what you're getting from your eyes, your ears, your smell, all your senses. And this communication is ready to fight or run. Okay. All right. So the vagus nerve is that information highway going up to the brain. And so the bed rest program is designed to kind of down regulate the sympathetic state. In other words, all of that, to put the body back at rest, to put the mind at ease, to let the senses stop giving worrisome content. Not really. I mean, you're still going to see the same information, but the way you're assigning meaning and the way the brain becomes chaotic starts to downregulate. Okay, so we're moving the body over into that rest and digest. Fine flow does a couple of things. Fine flow is going to be about not just, it's going to be about release. Release, put it that way. Release, let it go. So they both are doing that on the vagus nerve. I mean, that's the information highway from the body to the brain.
Yeah, and there's not a ton. Like Ken gave a great description there of everything, but if you go back to like the Healy app manual, there's Ken explained the detail behind it, but yes, bed rest in general is trying to promote that relaxed mood. So moving from sympathetic to parasympathetic as well there too. So yeah, there's a lot more to it, but in general, helping you to relax.
Yeah. Here's the footnote part right here.
Yeah.
the little cliff
Can't
note.
explain what's going on behind the scenes.
I'll give you the entire documentary, and here's the footnote on this.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's important to understand the principles of what's going on in the body, because then when you understand principles, you can apply them anywhere, everywhere. It just helps you make sense of what your body's doing, even in chaotic modes. All right. So let's see. So iPhone is saying I won one of your Healy pendant hard cases. Thank you. I find the case really tight fitting, and I'm worried that I might be too tight. How do you insert your device into it safely?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, referring to the lanyard case that we gave away, those pink and blue lanyard cases that have the hard shell, basically, where the Healy. I don't have one here with me, and yeah, it is a little tight, and it's kind of hard to explain verbally, like what to do. But I when I use that, because you can keep the coil in it too when you put it in, I always put the top part of the Healy sort of in like that, like angle it into the back of the case there, and then push down the rest once that part is in, and it kind of just snaps into place. I know it is pretty tight. It's very secure. I like to call it that way. It's not going to fall out. But from using it, I've never had it. It may seem like you're going to harm the Healy, but I've never had any sort of issue with that.
This is a little different case, but as Jake was
Yeah.
just talking about, if you put it into one end, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
then
Kind of like that as well. So
yeah, you kind of tuck it into one end and
yeah.
then press it down into the other. This is a different case, but similar principle.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ethel says, when running the sleep programs at night, I set it for 4 hours. It'll download, but the Bluetooth will cut out and stops the Healy. Why does that happen, and how can I change it? So if you're running the app, so if the Healy shuts off, the green light shuts off, I mean the the blue light, like right now, I'm running my Healy, and I'm running my MagHealy at the same time. So I've disconnected from my Healy and I've connected to my MagHealy. The Healy is still running the program I commanded it to earlier, because the green light, how can I tell? Is because the green light's still flashing. And then my MagHealy is connected to the app, and I'm running a program from that. So now when you're setting yours for 4 hours, I'm assuming you're setting it from the Analysis app, because there's no pink app that runs that long. If your phone goes to sleep, sleep mode, it'll probably disconnect. I don't know if that's what's happening. And then if it disconnects Bluetooth wise, then it will probably go to sleep. The Healy will probably just stop.
Yeah, I think we had a similar type question come up. I think I don't know if it was, I don't remember if it was you, Ethel, but what could interrupt the Bluetooth connection in the middle of the night too? Like if your phone's just sitting there as well, Bluetooth connections aren't, 100%. It's once it's connected, it's never going to have any sort of disruption there. So I don't know if there could be any sort of other interference or phone updates, or I don't know, anything else going on in the middle of the night that the phone is set to do, installing updates, or I'm not really sure what all the scenarios could be as far as why the Bluetooth connection would be interrupted.
You could try an experiment. You can put your phone, plug it in, put your phone in airplane mode, load the app as you wish, right? Put it into airplane mode, and even turn off the Wi-Fi, because you don't need the Wi-Fi to run any of the apps. And then see how it performs. That way, there shouldn't really be anything, unless, of course, your phone is set to go to sleep mode after a minute or so much time. You would have to turn that off. And then just the phone would be active. Now, it should be charging, so your phone should not die. It should not be interrupted by any updates because it's in airplane mode, and you've got the Wi-Fi turned off. So it wouldn't attempt to try to do any updates. In airplane mode, both your cellular data is turned off, and you've got the Wi-Fi off, so it's not trying to connect to some external data resource. Give that a try and see if it still does it. It shouldn't, because Bluetooth in general on your smart device doesn't have a timeout. As long as it's connected to something, it stays engaged. So I don't know, give it a shot. It could be something with your settings in your device. I've run mine, I've run mine all night. In fact, a lot of times, I'll run programs for a long time. Like I said, don't follow my example. I'm just saying I've done this for a long time and I pay attention to my body. Okay. All right. So let's see. Jennifer's asking, what are the principles behind electrode placement and microcurrent versus coil? This is a great subject. We've talked about this quite a bit. Electrode placement, you're talking about the sticky pads. Now, the wristbands are also electrodes, but some people call the sticky pads electrodes, right? It's an electrode is just something transferring basically power from one source to another. And that's what these wristbands do. They transmit microcurrent from the wiring systems to your body, into your skin. The electrode placement, you're going to see in the app, it's going to give you information about where to place those electrodes. Why? Because of what the program's purpose is. The purpose of the program, if it has to do with anything in the head, it's probably going to have you connect them to the mastoid bone or the brachial plexus. Brachial plexus is a section on each side of the spine, just in the mid or upper shoulder, right? That's brachial plexus, and they're there for a reason. It's speaking to the neurological bundling, the reticular activating system, which is where all the information goes between the brain stem and the body. That's why it's there. Or if it's talking about something local, you're going to place those electrodes on a local place in the body to address whatever that program's trying to do. If it's joint, you're going to place it on that joint. And the distance between those electrodes should not be more than 6 inches. Okay, so too far apart, again, it's going to start to depend upon your body's conductivity, the hydration of your body, condition of the skin, all kinds of things. You can get it further apart, but again, you're going to start to diminish the signal between the two. And that's exactly what you're trying to do, is get a signal between the two. Okay. Wristband placement, I mean, that's around the wrists. You can put them around your ankles. I don't recommend walking with them that way, but you can do that if you're talking about any of the wristbands. Some folks with smaller diameter wrists, I recommend you move those wristbands further up on the arm where it's a bigger diameter, so you can increase the surface area contact of that wristband. The smaller area, sometimes you can get some irritation. You don't have enough surface area contact to dissipate the amount of current going through there, so you need more diameter, right?
Yeah. And Ken, you made some great points there, especially when you're talking about something specific, local, like you said, knee, or I don't know, lower back or something like that. It's a lot of us, we get the Healy device, and then we have the wristbands that are available. They come in the box separately. There's the adhesive electrodes that are in the Healy box too. And we're like, I don't really need those. Whatever. I'm just gonna strap on these wristbands and I'm good to go. But like, yeah, it's if you're looking for something specific, joint specific, whatever, you're getting much more benefits if you're putting it as close as possible to the area that you need the help with, rather than just putting them onto your wrist as well. So maybe it's not as convenient to get out the sticky pads and then have to clean them and whatever, try to reuse them as many times as possible. But if you're looking for the best support for a particular issue in a different area, it's important to still be using the adhesive electrodes.
Yeah, the app is showing you kind of specifically where to place them because of the area of influence that program is trying to address, the area of influence. So within your body, there are specific spaces where you can get better amplitudes of information in that proximity to address, I don't care what it is, whether it be a pain of some sort, or some other discomfort, or even within the learning page, you look at the acute programs, the programs that say acute. Those are going to be with the sticky pads. They're going to be a very specific place because of what the program's trying to do, especially if it's learning or exam from the learning programs. Those acute programs, they're trying to speak directly to the brain stem. So getting them close to that area is going to be important. Mastoid bone, folks, if you don't know where that is, it's like right behind the ear, down where the bone disappears into the neck. It's the mastoid bone. And then brachial plexus, again, is on each side of the spine, right? Again, remember, you're no more than 6 inches apart. Side of the spine, upper shoulder area, right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we are at the end of our hour, Jake.
I did want to mention one thing before we go. So next Tuesday, there's a new webinar or Zoom series. It's called Healy Solutions. We mentioned it. I believe there was an email that went out recently, but they're going to be 30-minute long meetings focusing on a specific topic. The first one next Tuesday is on pain relief. One of our awesome Healy World members, Stephanie Brandreth, is going to be the special guest for that call. And again, focusing on just one specific way to use your Healy. Of course, with pain relief as one of our approved claims here that we have can talk about in more detail as well. I'll put the link into the chat here to close the call. You don't have to register. You can just click on the Zoom link next Tuesday. It's at 7:30 Eastern. So it's 30 minutes before Tech Tip Tuesday. So if you want, start your Tuesday evening early, join for Healy Solutions, and then hop on over right after to the Tech Tip Tuesday to continue your Tuesday evening learning experience.
Right, especially if it generates some questions, right? Even especially, yeah, you might get some cool questions that you didn't think of because of that.
Yeah. So let me put the link. I just put the link into the chat. If you want to tell everyone how to save the chat, but this is next Tuesday, 7:30 Eastern, May 27th.
Yeah, so everybody that wants to you want to save the chat because that's where these links are, and any answers that was put in there from Emmanuel. The top of the chat box there next to Healy Tech Tip Tuesday, there's three little dots. Click on those three little dots. It'll be a drop-down menu and give you the option for saving the chat. At the end of our call, when we hang up, you guys get off the call, don't leave the screen because it'll say, save chat. There'll be a file there, and you'll be able to save that file and have all this content.
Yeah, and we'll get that link added to our Healy World, Healy Americas Events.com calendar also, so you'll be able to click on that and find it there for next Tuesday if you aren't able to save the chat.
Well, and go to the Telegram group because it's in there too. In the Telegram group, by the way, our Team Healy Americas.
Yep.
Yep, it's posted in there as well. So you can copy it from there. It gives all the content about that series. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thanks for being here. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Emmanuel. Appreciate you guys. You guys are always rock stars. I love doing this stuff with you guys. So thank you, audience. We'll see you next week, and be sure to tune in to that special series.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
All right, you guys. And if we didn't get to your question tonight, please bring it back next week and let's get it in early. Okay. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.